Hello.
I never thought I'd be the guy sleeping on a friend's couch at 36, with nothing but a duffel bag and a broken marriage. But when your wife of 5 years looks you dead in the eyes and says, either do as I say or pack your bags in front of your closest friends, something inside you breaks, and something else awakens. This is how I lost everything I thought mattered, only to discover what really does. My name is Ryan Anderson, and I'm about to tell you how my marriage fell apart and why walking away was the hardest and best decision I ever made. When I first met Ashley Parker at my buddy's 4th of July barbecue, she was this vibrant woman with auburn hair and a laugh that made everyone turn their heads. She had this way of making people feel important, like they were the only person in the room. And man, when she fixed those green eyes on me, I was a goner. We hit it off immediately. Our first date stretched from dinner into drinks, then a walk along the river until 2 a.m. just talking. She was smart, driven, with this fiery passion about everything. I thought I'd struck gold. But looking back now, the warning signs were there from the beginning. I just didn't want to see them. Ashley always had to control the narrative. If I told a story about us to friends, she'd jump in to correct minor details that didn't actually matter. At restaurants, she'd send food back if it wasn't exactly as she'd ordered it. When we disagreed, she wouldn't just express her opinion. She'd chip away at mine until I gave in. Not because she convinced me, but because it wasn't worth the emotional toll of continuing the argument. I remember once, 6 months into dating, we were deciding on a vacation spot. I wanted the mountains. She wanted the beach. Simple disagreement, right? But it escalated into her questioning why I never considered her needs and bringing up completely unrelated issues from weeks before. 3 hours later, I was apologizing for being selfish, and we were booking beach tickets. I didn't even realize what had happened until much later. These weren't red flags to me then. They were just personality quirks. I figured every relationship requires compromise. Plus, when things were good between us, they were incredible. She could be incredibly thoughtful, planning elaborate surprises for my birthday, or remembering tiny details about things I liked. I was raised believing that a man provides, protects, and leads his household. My dad worked 60-hour weeks to keep food on our table while mom raised us kids. That's what I thought marriage was. The man handles business, and in return, he gets respect and trust to make decisions. Old-fashioned? Maybe. But that's what I brought into my relationship with Ashley. So when she said yes to my proposal after 18 months together, I thought we were on the same page about what our life would look like. I had a solid job in financial management, making enough for us to afford a nice 3-bedroom in a good neighborhood. I thought I was setting us up right. What I didn't understand then was that Ashley wasn't following my lead because she respected my role. She was just waiting for the right moment to change the rules of the game entirely. I proposed to Ashley after a year and a half together, on a boat at sunset. When she said yes, I thought we had the same vision for our future. Man, was I wrong. The wedding was perfect. Ashley made sure of that. Every detail had to be just right, from the exact shade of blue for the bridesmaids' dresses to the specific vintage of champagne we served. I didn't mind her taking charge of the planning. I figured that's what most women do. Looking back, I should have paid more attention to how she handled the small disagreements with vendors, always pushing until she got exactly what she wanted, regardless of cost or reason. We bought a 2-story colonial in a nice suburb of Boston. The mortgage stretched my budget, but Ashley insisted we needed to be in the right neighborhood. I took pride in providing this life for us. My father always said, a man's worth is measured by how well he takes care of his family, and I believe that with every fiber of my being. I walked into marriage with pretty traditional ideas. I'd be the breadwinner, handling the major decisions and finances. Ashley would manage our home and social calendar. In return for providing financial security, I expected a certain level of respect and appreciation. When big decisions came up, I thought my role as provider would naturally give my opinion more weight. The first few months felt like a honeymoon extension. Ashley would have dinner ready when I got home from the office. We'd talk about our days, and weekends were spent fixing up the house or going out with friends. But underneath, Ashley was just playing a part. The sweet, supportive woman I dated was gradually revealing herself to be something else entirely. The change was so subtle, I barely noticed it happening. It started with small things. She questioned my decisions about investments or home repairs. "Are you sure that's the best way?" became her favorite phrase. At first, I appreciated what I thought was her interest in our shared life. But soon I realized she wasn't asking to understand. She was questioning my competence. When friends would visit, she'd tell stories that painted me as lovably clueless, needing her guidance to function properly. Ryan would be lost without me. She'd laugh, while I forced a smile, feeling increasingly uncomfortable. Ashley's temporary submission wasn't real. It was strategic. As long as I was fulfilling my role as provider, bringing home the paychecks that funded our lifestyle, she was willing to play along with the illusion that we were equals, or that I had any real authority in our marriage. What I didn't understand then was that dominant personalities don't soften after marriage. They might hide their true nature during dating, even during the early days of marriage, but eventually, the mask slips. I was about to learn this lesson the hard way, and it would cost me almost everything before I found my way back to myself. I remember that Monday morning vividly. March 15th, tax season was in full swing at our financial firm. I'd been putting in 60-hour weeks, coming home exhausted only to find Ashley irritated about something I'd forgotten or hadn't done right. The irony wasn't lost on me when I walked into the senior partner's office expecting to discuss a client portfolio, and instead found the HR director waiting alongside him. The market had been turbulent, and our firm wasn't immune. They needed to cut overhead. Just like that, after 7 years, I was handed a severance package and escorted to clean out my desk. I sat in my car for nearly an hour in the parking garage, staring at the cardboard box containing my desk plants, photos, and the financial calculator I'd had since college. How would I tell Ashley? We had the mortgage, her car payment, credit card bills from the kitchen remodel she'd insisted on last fall. When I finally made it home, Ashley was in our bedroom, trying on clothes for a dinner with her girlfriends. I stood in the doorway, watching her twirl in front of the mirror in a new dress I didn't recognize. She noticed me and frowned. "You're home early, and you look terrible. What's wrong?" I took a deep breath. "I got laid off today. Budget cuts." Her face went through a series of expressions: surprise, confusion, and then something that looked like calculation. "Will you get severance? How long will it last?" Practical questions, but her tone was oddly detached, as if discussing a minor inconvenience. 3 months. I've already reached out to some contacts. I should find something before it runs out. I try to sound confident. Ashley nodded, turning back to the mirror. "Well, I guess I should cancel this weekend's trip to the vineyard with Melissa and Jake. And the kitchen backsplash will have to wait." I expected her to come over, maybe offer comfort or reassurance. She didn't. Instead, she checked her watch. "Look, I can't miss this dinner. It's for Jen's promotion. We'll figure this out tomorrow." She grabbed her purse and gave me a quick peck on the cheek. "Don't wait up. And Ryan, don't tell anyone about this yet. Okay? I don't want people talking." That night, alone in our house, I ordered pizza, cracked open a beer, and made a list of contacts to call. I fell asleep on the couch watching old reruns, trying to quiet the anxiety gnawing at my insides. The next morning, Ashley suggested we have a strategy meeting over breakfast. Her initial plan sounded supportive. We'd tighten our budget. I'd focus on job hunting. She'd pick up extra hours at her part-time job at the boutique downtown. For about 2 weeks, things were okay. Ashley asked about my applications, made me coffee before interviews, even left encouraging notes in my briefcase. The last genuine kindness I remember was when she made my favorite lasagna after a particularly promising second interview. Then the rejection email came from that company. "We've decided to go with a candidate whose experience better aligns with our needs." When I told Ashley, something shifted in her eyes. It was subtle, a spark extinguishing. That night, for the first time, she didn't sleep facing me. It was the beginning of the end, though I didn't know it yet. I had exactly 12 more weeks of severance, a dwindling savings account, and a wife whose warmth was fading faster than my job prospects. The clock was ticking. 1 month turned into 2, then 3. My severance was running out, and each passing day ratcheted up the tension in our home. I'd had a few interviews, even a second round with a smaller firm across town, but nothing had panned out yet. The shift in Ashley's behavior wasn't sudden. It was a gradual erosion, like water wearing away stone. She stopped asking how my job search was going. Instead, the questions became more pointed. "Did you follow up with that recruiter?" Or "How many applications did you send today?" Her tone implied I wasn't trying hard enough. Her language changed too. Our conversations no longer included we or us. Now it was all about what I needed to do, what I had failed to accomplish. The woman who once introduced me as my amazing husband now referred to me as Ryan in a flat, detached tone when talking to friends. I started noticing how she'd check her watch when I spoke about potential job leads, her eyes glazing over with disinterest. When bills arrived, she'd slap them down in front of me with a short, "These need to be paid," as if I'd forgotten our financial situation. The physical distance grew in tandem with the emotional one. Ashley began sleeping on the edge of the bed, her back to me. The casual touches, a hand on my shoulder as she passed, fingers brushing mine when handing me something, disappeared. I couldn't remember the last time we'd been intimate. When I reached for her one night, she stiffened and murmured something about being tired. Our home, once a place of comfort, became a battlefield of small skirmishes. If I left a coffee mug in the sink, Ashley would slam dishes around until I got the message. If I forgot to take out the trash, she wouldn't speak to me for hours. Every minor oversight became evidence of my broader failure as a husband and provider. One evening, I was cutting vegetables for dinner, one of my new responsibilities since Ashley was now working longer hours at the boutique. She walked in, took one look at the cutting board, and sighed dramatically. "That's not how you chop an onion," she said, taking the knife from my hand. "Here, I'll do it. Maybe focus on something you can handle." Something in me snapped. "Ashley, I know how to chop a damn onion." She looked at me with genuine surprise, as if she couldn't believe I'd pushed back. Then her expression hardened. "Well, excuse me for thinking you might want to do something right for once." She dropped the knife and walked out, leaving me standing there, knuckles white against the countertop. That night at dinner, she announced she'd be taking over the finances. Since I'm the one bringing in the steady income now, it makes sense for me to manage the money. I wanted to argue, but found myself nodding instead. What position was I in to object? She was right. She was the one keeping us afloat. And that's when I realized what had happened. In Ashley's eyes, I was no longer her equal partner. I was a disappointment, a burden, someone to be managed rather than respected. The man she'd married had been the financial manager, the provider, the decisive one. Without my job, that man no longer existed for her. The power dynamic had shifted completely, and I was losing myself in the aftermath. 5 months in unemployment, I was hanging by a thread. I had picked up some freelance financial consulting, nothing steady, but enough to contribute something to our dwindling accounts. Ashley had taken on more hours at the boutique and reminded me of this fact regularly. The NFL playoffs were underway, and for the first time in months, I felt a spark of normalcy when my buddy Mike suggested hosting the guys at our place for the Patriots game. Ashley surprisingly agreed, perhaps relieved to have me occupied while she went shopping with her sister. Game day arrived, and the living room filled with familiar faces: Mike, Dave, and Chris, guys I'd known since college. For a few hours, I wasn't the unemployed financial manager. I was just Ryan, arguing referee calls and demolishing hot wings like the old days. Ashley returned earlier than expected. I heard the garage door open during the third quarter, but was too caught up in a crucial play to greet her. She appeared in the living room doorway, arms full of shopping bags, surveying our spread of beer bottles and snack plates with thinly disguised disdain. "Ryan, come help me with the groceries," she called over the game commentary. At the next commercial break, I answered, eyes still on the screen. There was a moment of silence, and I could feel the temperature in the room drop. Ashley placed her shopping bags down deliberately and walked to stand between me and the television. My friends shifted uncomfortably on the couch. "I said now," she repeated, her voice eerily calm. "I need help with the groceries, and I need it right now." I gestured at the screen. "Babe, it's third down with 2 minutes left in the quarter. Give me 5 minutes." What happened next is burned into my memory. Ashley's eyes narrowed, and she planted her hands on her hips, looking down at me like a teacher at a disobedient child. "Either you come help me right now, or you can pack your bags and find somewhere else to sleep tonight." The room went dead silent. Even the TV commentators seemed to lower their volume. My friends became intensely interested in their beer bottles and phones, desperately trying to pretend they hadn't heard my wife threaten to kick me out of our house over grocery bags. I felt heat rise up my neck, a mixture of humiliation and rage. 5 pairs of eyes avoided meeting mine. My 3 friends, and even our two dogs seemed to sense the tension. "Guys, excuse me for a minute," I managed to say with forced casualness, rising from my seat. In the kitchen, Ashley was already unloading bags, slamming items onto the counter. I closed the door behind me. "What the hell was that?" I kept my voice low. "What?" She didn't look up. "I asked for help, and you ignored me. You just threatened to throw me out in front of my friends." Ashley rolled her eyes. "Don't be so dramatic. I was making a point. The point that you think you can talk to me like I'm a child, or the point that you believe you have the right to kick me out of our home." She finally turned to face me. "Our home. Let's be clear, Ryan. I'm the one keeping this household running right now. I'm the one making sure the bills get paid while you watch football with your buddies." In that moment, looking at the contempt on her face, something crystallized for me. This wasn't a rough patch. This was who Ashley had become, or perhaps who she'd always been beneath the surface. I walked back into the living room, where my friends were pretending to be absorbed in the game. Dave shot me a concerned glance, but no one said a word about what had just happened. But something had shifted inside me. For the first time since losing my job, I felt clarity rather than shame. And that clarity would soon lead me to the hardest decision of my life. After Ashley's ultimatum, my friends stuck around another hour, but the easy camaraderie was gone. They left with awkward handshakes and concerned glances. Mike lingered at the door. "Everything okay, man?" he asked quietly. "Yeah, just a rough patch." I lied, the words tasting bitter. "Job stuff, you know." Mike nodded, unconvinced. "Call if you need anything." Seriously. After they left, I found Ashley in our bedroom, scrolling through her phone as if nothing had happened. The casual way she sat there, after publicly undermining me, made something snap inside me. "We need to talk about what happened," I said from the doorway. She glanced up briefly. "There's nothing to talk about. You were being inconsiderate. So your response was to threaten to throw me out of our house, in front of my friends." Ashley sighed dramatically, putting her phone down. "I didn't threaten you. I simply stated consequences for your behavior." "Say that again." I stepped further into the room. I said I didn't threaten. "No. The part about me doing what you say or packing my bags." "Say it again." She met my gaze, unflinching. "Either do what I ask when I ask it, or find somewhere else to stay. This is my house too, and I expect respect in it." In that moment, everything became crystal clear. Ashley wasn't temporarily frustrated by our situation. This was who she truly was. A woman who saw me not as a partner in life's ups and downs, but as a subordinate who had failed to perform his function. I looked at her, really looked at her, and wondered how I'd missed it. The beautiful, vibrant woman I married was still there physically, but her eyes held something I couldn't recognize anymore. Or perhaps it had always been there, and I'd chosen not to see it. "You know what, Ashley? You're right about one thing. This is your house too, not just yours." I turned and walked to her closet, pulling out my gym duffel bag. Ashley watched with mild curiosity as I began packing some clothes. "What are you doing?" she finally asked. "Taking some time to think." My voice was steady, calmer than I expected. "Don't be ridiculous. Where will you even go?" "I haven't figured that out yet." I continued packing, adding toiletries and my laptop. "Ryan, stop being dramatic. Just apologize for ignoring me earlier, and we can move past this." I zipped up the bag and turned to face her. "This isn't about the groceries, Ashley. This is about respect, something that's been missing from this marriage for a while now." "So you're what? Leaving?" "Because I asked for help carrying groceries." Her incredulous tone might have worked before, making me question my perception, but not anymore. "No, I'm leaving because you think it's acceptable to give me ultimatums in front of my friends. Because you've made it clear that your respect for me is conditional on my paycheck, not who I am as a person." Ashley's expression shifted from dismissive to alarmed as she realized I was serious. "Ryan, you're overreacting. Let's talk about this tomorrow when we're both calmer." But I was already heading for the door, a strange sense of peace washing over me. For the first time in months, I was making a choice based on self-respect rather than fear of disappointing her. "I'll text you when I'm settled somewhere," was all I said as I walked out. That first night, I crashed on Mike's couch, sending Ashley a brief text that I was safe. She didn't respond. I wasn't sure if she was giving me the silent treatment or if she truly believed I'd return home tomorrow, ready to apologize. I didn't. Dave, who worked in commercial real estate, found me a month-to-month studio by the following afternoon. It wasn't much, a Murphy bed, kitchenette, and tiny bathroom, but it was mine, a space where I wouldn't be constantly measured and found wanting. For 2 days, complete silence from Ashley. No calls, no texts. The quiet gave me space to think clearly for the first time in months. On day 3, her message appeared. "When are you coming home? This tantrum has gone on long enough." I didn't reply. Later that day, I returned to the house while Ashley was at work to pack more clothes, financial documents, and a few sentimental items. As I moved through our home, I realized how little of it reflected me. The furniture, artwork, even the color scheme had all been Ashley's choices. I was nearly finished when the garage door opened. Ashley walked in, stopping short when she saw me. "What are you doing?" Her voice was icy. "Getting some of my things." "So you're really doing this?" "Leaving over one comment." "You know, it's not about one comment, Ashley. It's about how you've treated me since I lost my job. Like I'm less than. Like your respect for me was tied to my paycheck. That's not fair. I've been under pressure too." As I picked up my box to leave, her voice suddenly softened. "Ryan, this is crazy. We can work this out. Come home." I searched her face for any sign of genuine understanding. All I saw was calculation, the realization that her control was slipping. "I need time to think," I said finally. "I'll be in touch about the bills." Back in my tiny studio, I sat on the edge of the bed, wondering if I'd made an enormous mistake. I had no real plan, dwindling savings, and a marriage that might be beyond saving. But for the first time in months, I could breathe without the weight of constant disapproval pressing on my chest. That night, I pulled out my laptop and created a spreadsheet of my finances. The numbers were sobering, but not hopeless. I had enough runway to figure out my next steps. I was on my own now, walking into uncertainty. But at least I was walking on my own terms, with my dignity intact. The first weeks on my own were brutal. My freelance income barely covered rent and utilities, leaving little for food and nothing for savings. I survived on instant noodles, peanut butter sandwiches, and the occasional pizza when a new client paid. Pride kept me from asking friends for financial help. They knew I'd left Ashley, but not the full extent of my struggle. When we met for beers, I'd nurse one drink all night, claiming I was cutting back for health reasons. One rainy Tuesday, my car wouldn't start. The mechanic's diagnosis, $800 for a new alternator. Money I didn't have. For the next month, I took buses and walked everywhere, adding hours to my daily commute between client meetings. I hit rock bottom the day my laptop, my lifeline to freelance work, died. I sat in my studio apartment, staring at the black screen, and for the first time since leaving Ashley, I questioned my decision. One call, and I could be back in our comfortable home, with working appliances and a fully stocked fridge. Instead, I pawned my grandfather's watch, the one possession I promised myself I'd never part with. The $300 bought me a refurbished laptop that kept my business afloat. Every job application I sent out came back with rejection or silence. The financial industry was still recovering, and firms were hesitant to hire. I expanded my search, applying for positions I would have scoffed a year earlier. Then came an unexpected opportunity. A former client called about a part-time bookkeeping position at his auto repair shop. The pay was modest, but it offered stability my freelance work lacked. "It's not fancy," he warned, "but it's honest work." I took immediately. For the first time in my professional life, I was balancing books for mechanics with grease-stained hands, working in a small office that smelled of motor oil and coffee. The old Ryan would have seen this as a massive step down. The new Ryan was grateful. The shop owner, Frank, became a mentor of sorts. A divorced man in his 60s, he recognized something in me. The look of someone rebuilding from scratch. "Rock bottom makes a solid foundation," he'd say, passing me a wrench when they needed an extra hand. Nowhere to go but up. Slowly, my finances stabilized. I could afford decent groceries, get my car fixed, and even set aside a small emergency fund. I was no longer drowning. I was treading water. The strange thing was, despite working harder for less money than ever before, I started sleeping better. The constant knot in my stomach, the one I'd carried throughout the last months with Ashley, began to loosen. I wasn't thriving yet, but I was surviving on my own terms. And somehow, that felt like more of an achievement than any of my previous career successes. 3 months after walking out, I was finally finding my footing. My job at Frank's auto shop had expanded to include managing their customer accounts, and I'd moved to a slightly better apartment, still small, but with an actual bedroom separate from the living space. That's when the divorce papers arrived. I shouldn't have been surprised. Ashley and I had barely communicated beyond terse texts about financial matters. Still, seeing our names on legal documents made it real in a way nothing else had. I signed them within a day and sent them back. The next morning, my phone exploded with messages and calls from Ashley. I let them go to voicemail, but eventually answered when she called for the 5th consecutive time. "You just signed them, without even talking to me." Her voice wavered between anger and disbelief. "What's there to discuss, Ashley? We haven't had a real conversation in months. I thought the papers would wake you up, make you realize what you're throwing away." I sat down heavily on my couch. "You sent divorce papers as a manipulation tactic?" "I sent them because I thought you needed a reality check. This has gone on long enough, Ryan. You've made your point. It's time to come home." "My point? What exactly do you think my point is?" "That you were upset about how I spoke to you. That you needed space. That your pride was hurt. I get it, okay? I shouldn't have said what I said in front of your friends." Her words were conciliatory, but something was missing. Any acknowledgement of the deeper issues. Any recognition that her behavior reflected a fundamental lack of respect. "Ashley, this isn't about one incident. It's about what our marriage became." "What it became? You mean after you lost your job and stopped trying? After I had to carry everything while you wallowed?" And there it was, the truth beneath her facade of reconciliation. In her mind, I was still the failure who couldn't provide, who deserved her contempt. "I think signing those papers was the right decision," I said quietly. That unleashed a torrent. She swung between accusations. "You abandoned our marriage." Guilt trips. "What am I supposed to tell my parents?" And sudden sentimentality. "Remember our honeymoon? We were so happy." Finally, she resorted to practical matters. "Do you know how complicated it will be to divide everything? The house, the investments. I'm sure our lawyers can figure it out." "You can't afford a lawyer," she scoffed. "Goodbye, Ashley," I said, and ended the call. The calls and texts continued for weeks. When I didn't respond, she enlisted mutual friends to check on me and report back. Some were obvious in their missions. Others were more subtle, casually mentioning how concerned Ashley was, how she wasn't herself lately. I maintained my boundaries. Ashley's reaction only confirmed what I already knew. She didn't want me back because she valued me. She wanted back the man who wouldn't challenge her control. That man no longer existed. 1 year after walking out of my marriage, I stood in the doorway of my new apartment, a real one-bedroom in a decent neighborhood. Not as luxurious as the home I'd shared with Ashley, but entirely mine, paid for with honest work and free from the weight of conditional acceptance. The divorce had finalized 3 months earlier. I let Ashley keep the house, taking only my personal belongings and a modest settlement that helped clear my debts. Some friends thought I should have fought for more, but freedom from that toxic relationship was worth more than any material possession. Frank had promoted me to financial manager of his auto shop, which had expanded to 3 locations. The pay was still less than my former corporate job, but it came with something more valuable, respect that didn't evaporate when times got tough. I'd started dating again, cautiously. A coffee shop owner named Melissa who valued straightforward communication and handled disagreements without making me feel diminished. We were taking it slow, both carrying lessons from past relationships. Looking back, I can pinpoint the exact lessons from my marriage to Ashley. First, power dynamics in relationships are real. Once a woman stops seeing you as worthy of respect, that perception rarely changes. It's not about money alone, but about being a reliable partner with consistent character. Losing my job didn't change who I was. It just revealed who Ashley had always been. Second, dominant personalities don't suddenly transform after marriage. Ashley's controlling nature was evident from our earliest dates, but I ignored the signs, believing marriage would soften her edges. It only gave her more territory to control. Third, some people only value what you provide, not who you are. When my provision stopped, Ashley's love evaporated. True partnership means supporting each other through life's inevitable ups and downs, not just the comfortable times. Finally, self-respect must come before relationship preservation. Staying with someone who treats you as less than equal slowly erodes your identity until you no longer recognize yourself. I'm not bitter about what happened. In a strange way, I'm grateful. That public humiliation became the catalyst for reclaiming my life and rebuilding my identity on a stronger foundation. The man who walked away from his marriage that night wasn't running from conflict. He was walking toward authenticity. It was the hardest decision I ever made, but watching my self-respect return with each forward step confirmed it was the right one. I lost a house, a lifestyle, and a wife who never truly saw me. But I gained something far more valuable, the knowledge that I am whole on my own, and the strength to never again place my worth in someone else's hands.
Bye.